Hi, I'm Danni Hunter and I'm the Victorian Chief Executive of the Urban Development Institute of Australia. If you've been keeping an eye on the news in recent weeks, you will have noticed that the issue of combustible cladding has risen again. It's come up over and over in recent months. And today what I'd like to do is take you through a history of the issue so that you can catch up in real time, real quick, before there are any new developments. It all started in 2014 with the fire at the La Crosse apartment building in the Docklands here in Melbourne. This was followed by the tragic Grenfell fire in London in June 2017, and the issue was catapulted to the top of priority lists of building ministers around Australia and around the world. The Victorian government took swift action and established the Victorian Cladding Task Force in mid-2017 and appointed John Brumby and Ted Baillieu to lead the work. Many of the task force's interim recommendations focused on the audit and regulatory functions of the Victorian Building Authority and of local councils, and specifically they recommended that an audit of all buildings be conducted to assess the depth of the use of combustible cladding here in Victoria. At the same time, building ministers around the country gathered to work through a harmonised process, with key actions being to identify and address immediate safety concerns before moving on to assessing the broader compliance and enforcement problems faced by the industry. The Building Ministers Forum commissioned the landmark report known as the Sheargold Weir Report, which highlighted the major challenges across the country faced by property owners, building practitioners and regulators. The Sheargold Weir Report made a suite of ambitious recommendations and proposed an overhaul of building regulatory systems in all states over a 3-year period. Victoria took action quickly and earned the self-proclaimed title of being the most advanced in its response to building regulatory issues and in the response to combustible cladding in particular. The Victorian response included a financial assistance scheme for building owners, the expansion of audit activity by the Victorian Building Authority, and new oversight for building practitioners. New ministerial guidelines now prevent the use of combustible cladding here in Victoria. In February 2019, the Neo 200 apartment building in Melbourne caught fire, highlighting again just how real the threat to life and property is for buildings covered in combustible cladding. Also in February this year was a landmark ruling from the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, ordering that builder L.U. Simon's consultants, including architect Ellenberg Fraser, surveyor Gardner Group and fire engineer Thomas Nichols, were in fact liable for the combustible cladding that spread a potentially fatal fire at Melbourne's La Crosse Tower. Since then, the industry has been coming to terms with the practical implications of this ruling and the primarily bureaucratic response from policymakers to the challenges faced by property owners and the building industry. A significant implication is around insurance for building practitioners, including surveyors. As of July 2nd this year, key insurance provider Landmark Underwriting will no longer provide insurance coverage of cladding to surveyors. If insurance falls through for building practitioners and surveyors in particular, building and construction in Victoria will simply come to a standstill. So as of yesterday, many building surveyors and certifiers are now unable to secure professional indemnity insurance, mainly due to uncertainty around liability of combustible cladding materials. Without this insurance cover, these professionals are unable to practice, and a vast number of buildings in Melbourne may be unable to be certified as being livable. So we welcome Victoria's financial scheme, but it won't go anywhere near enough to be enough to address the scale of the problem here in Victoria. There are issues like insurance, compliance, safety and habitability that need the federal government's urgent attention. The work they've done in convening the Building Ministers Forum has been good, but a bureaucratic solution alone just doesn't cut it. So this year in Melbourne skyline, we have seen 200 cranes dotted across the skyline. The industry is working as hard as it can to deliver on the peak of the property industry's boom in 2017. So we saw building approvals come through at high levels in that number. They're being built now. These buildings are people's apartments, offices and new communities. If the Victorian and federal governments don't take action immediately, Melbourne's development industry could come to a screaming halt. Melbourne is Australia's biggest property market, and we're currently in a vital time where confidence in our industry indicates confidence in our economy. We can't afford any discord or delay between the state and federal governments on this matter, and for our industry's perspective, we need a response now. That's it for now. Keep your eyes peeled for updates.